So now we are on week 6. We are on week 6 of our Daring Faith campaign, the Daring Faith, the key to miracles. And this is the last week, by the way, during this week, in terms of those who are following along in the devotional guide. Actually, I hope everybody's following along in the devotional guide. And our final sermon in the series is next Sunday on 29th. As you've heard, we'll be having our celebration service, and we want to celebrate what God has done, because He has been at work in many people's lives. I've heard some testimonies brought to me personally, but I want to hear more, and for all of us to share together and celebrate how God has worked in our lives during this time. Now today I want to look at the sermon. The sermon title is Daring to Wait on God. Daring to Wait on God. Because you know something, we don't like to wait. Generally, you know, we don't like waiting. Waiting in a queue, waiting in a waiting room, being in traffic. You know, these days we have this thing called technology, which has made everything so quick, and it has turned us into more impatient people than the people of our past. Yet waiting is an important part of character development. You know, for example, if you have a child who never has to wait for anything that they are going to be given, you know, then they become a spoilt brat. They become a person that in their future will not be able to participate properly in the general society. You know, we have to learn delayed gratification for us to find any real success in anything. You know, right now, we've just mentioned the election panic, and one of the things that happened was that the prices of shares just collapsed. The stock market really dropped. Don't join in the panic. You know, wait. If you've got something there, wait. And in fact, if you can buy, you know, buy wisely. You know, it won't give you a return immediately, but it will if you wait. If you wait. You know, our inability to wait is the cause of so many problems in our lives. You know, the inability to wait until you can afford something is the cause of all debt. That's why we get into debt, because you want to buy it on credit. And so many problems. So even, I mean, think about, you know, this inability that people have to delay their sexual gratification until marriage. So many social problems, even diseases are being brought about by this. You know, and so many issues are brought about by the fact that we don't want to wait. We want it, and we want it now. We really struggle with the whole area of waiting. And some of you are in the waiting room of God right now. You know, you're waiting for an answer to prayer. You're waiting for direction and clarification from God. You're waiting for the Lord to, you know, relieve a pain that you're having, or to heal a relationship that is there. And there is a delay. There is a delay. Why does God delay things when clearly He can deal with them straight away with there's just anything He can deal with instantly? The Bible says in Ecclesiastes 3:11, there on the top of your outline, God does everything just right and on time. But people can never completely understand what He is doing. Now, if you could understand everything that God was doing, you'd be God. But I want to tell you, you're not. I'm not God. He is. He is, and I'm not. And so I don't understand what is just right. I don't understand what is on time. And today I want us to look at what you do when you're in that situation where you have to wait on God, daring to wait on God. And I want to answer 2 questions. What do I need to remember as I'm waiting on God? And secondly, what are the things that I should be doing or I need to do while I'm in that waiting room of life? Because waiting is really part of daring faith. Because waiting is as much an act of faith as taking the initiative or taking a risk or doing any of the other things that we've talked about in the last few weeks as we've looked at faith over the last few weeks. And so the question is, what do you need to remember while you're waiting? What do you need to do while you wait? And first, let me give us 5 things that you need to remember. And number 1, remember that there is a natural delay between planting and harvesting. There's always a natural delay between planting and harvesting. And we talked about this just last week. You know, when I plant seeds, I don't go out of the door the next day and expect to see fully grown tomatoes. You know, there's going to be a delay. Ecclesiastes chapter 3. For everything there is a season, a time for every activity under heaven, a time to plant and a time to harvest. You don't plant and harvest in the same season. Now, many of us are planting seeds during this campaign of Daring Faith. Seeds of finance, seeds of service, seeds of sacrifice that we are giving ourselves. And there are things that we are hoping and praying will become the product. Let me tell you, you're not going to get the harvest immediately. You need to understand that it comes, but it comes in a different season. And during that time of waiting, you wait expectantly. You wait with patience. Remember that there is a natural delay between planting and harvesting. Number two, I need to remember that there is an unseen battle going on. There is an unseen battle that's going on. There is spiritual warfare that is happening in a realm that we don't understand. You know, we don't see it, we don't feel it, but there is a reality out there. There is something that's going on, a war between good and evil, between angels and demons. And the fact is that if you're a child of God, then you are a target of Satan. Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. It says, "For we are not fighting against flesh and blood enemies, but against evil rulers and authorities of the unseen world, against mighty powers in this dark world, and against evil spirits in the heavenly places." Now, the Bible doesn't tell us that much about, the spiritual war that's going on behind our prayers, behind the things that we are being called to do. But we have a glimpse of this in the book of Daniel. Daniel chapter 10 is the only place, where the Bible shows us about that spiritual warfare that is happening behind the scenes. While you're trusting God, while you're praying. Daniel had a vision of an angel in Daniel chapter 10. That's what it talks about. And the angel comes to him and he says, "Daniel, you are very precious to God. Since the first day you began to pray for understanding and to humble yourself before God, your request has been heard in heaven." And by the way, notice this, that the very first prayer that you offered, God heard it. It's not that, he hadn't heard it until number 95. He heard it the very first time. And the angel says, "I have come in answer to your prayer. But for 21 days, the evil spirit prince of the kingdom of Persia blocked my way. Then Michael, one of the archangels, came to help me." Do you see that? Something amazing is happening. The Bible is telling us that Daniel had prayed and there was a delay. And then the angel finally shows up and he says, "I was sent from day one. But, as we've been coming, we've been in a battle. As I was coming, I was in a battle. And Michael the archangel had to come and help me so that I could bring the answer to you." Now, I can't say that I know much more about, everything that's going on in the spiritual realm beyond what is said there. But the truth is, it's just not as simple as you think. And so I want you to write, a delay is not a denial. A delay is not a denial. When an answer to prayer is delayed, it doesn't mean that it's not going to be answered. When you're stepping out and you're going through a tough time as you're trying to fulfill something that you feel God has called you to do, the fact that it's being tough does not mean that the calling is not real. There may be spiritual war that is going on behind the scenes, and you've got to keep on praying, got to keep on going. A delay is not a denial. Number 3, remember, God is preparing me for His blessing. God is preparing me for His blessing. When you have an idea and you ask God to do something in your life, God, most of the times, usually He has a bigger, better idea, and He's going to prepare you for a bigger and better answer to your prayer. But usually this will take time. But God is more interested in building your character than He is in pampering you. Because it's your character that you're going to take to heaven. In 1 Peter chapter 1, the Bible says there is wonderful joy ahead, even though it is necessary for you to endure many trials for a little while. It might be feeling like it's long, it's a wait, and it can be really difficult, but while it may seem long to you, God sees what is needed. It says these trials will show that your faith is genuine. It is being tested as fire tests and purifies gold, though your faith is far more precious than mere gold. You might write this, you might write that waiting is a test. Waiting is a real test. When you're praying for something in your life and it hasn't happened, and you're in that season between harvest and sowing, rather planting and harvest, waiting is a test. It's going to be a test. It's a test of faith. It's a test of your character. It's a test of your endurance. Waiting is a test. Romans chapter 8, verse 24 to 28. Paul says, if we hope for something we already see, it's not really hope. Who hopes for what can be seen? But if we hope for what we don't see, we eagerly wait for it with perseverance. At the same time, the Spirit also helps in our weaknesses, because we don't know how to pray for what we need, but the Spirit intercedes along with our groans that cannot be expressed with words. The one who searches our hearts knows what the Spirit has in mind. The Spirit intercedes for God's people the way God wants him to. We know that all things work together for the good of those who love God, those whom God has called according to his plan. Now that's a powerful, powerful passage. And it speaks about that waiting, that patience, waiting in eager expectation. And, it's like a pregnant woman is waiting for her baby to be born, looking forward to that day when the baby will be born. You know it's coming, but you have to wait. And at times, it's painful. You have to persevere. But thankfully, we're told we are never, never, never going to be alone as we wait in this, because God's Spirit is always with us, always for us, always helping. And then we are to be remembering all along that God is preparing you for what he wants to give you. He is working all things together for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his plan. That's a great promise. If you haven't yet memorized that particular passage, I'd really encourage you. Romans 8:28, do memorize it. It just is such an encouragement. Then number 4, when I'm waiting, I need to remember that I'm in good company when waiting on God. I'm in good company while I'm waiting. Millions of saints before you have had to go through these periods of God's waiting room, waiting. You're not alone. If you're waiting right now for an answer, concerning a situation in your life or something else, there's a lot of people sitting right around you, some people right near you who are going through that same waiting. You are never alone in that particular situation. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 2, it says, faith is the reason we remember great people who lived in the past. And every one of those people had to wait. Every one of those great people had to wait. Think of Joseph, who God gave a dream of being a ruler when he was very young. He had a dream of being a ruler, and he ends up being enslaved and then put in a prison for 14 years for a crime that he never committed. He was jailed for being falsely accused of rape. And that was a period of waiting. God knew exactly where he was. He was just preparing Joseph for his destiny. You look at that next verse, Hebrews 6:15. It says, after waiting patiently, Abraham received what was promised. He waited till he was 100 years old to get that one child, that son that had been promised, Isaac. That we see in the story that there were times when he was almost, giving up hope a few times. But God helped him back on track, and he hung on to the promises of God. And this brings us to number 5. Remember, God always keeps his promises. He always keeps his promises, and you need to remember that while you're waiting, because unlike people, you can count on God to come through. Every promise he has ever made is yes in Christ. In Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3, on your outline, God speaking, he says, at the time I have decided, my words will come true. You can trust what I say about the future. It may take a long time, but keep on waiting. It will happen. Some of you need to write that verse down, isn't it? Put it somewhere on your fridge or somewhere where you can easily be seeing it so that you are remembering this. God is saying, my word will come true. You can trust it. If I say it, it will happen. It may take a long time, but keep on waiting. It will happen. God's timing is perfect. He is never early. He is never late. At the time I decide, my words will come true. So there are 5 things to remember: that there's a natural delay, that there's a spiritual war, that God is preparing me for his blessing, that I'm in good company. Many people are going through this, and all the saints of the past have gone through this, and God keeps his promises. And then there are 4 things that you are to do. And I want you to write these things, 4 things to do while you are in the waiting room. It's an acrostic, so it'll be easy for you to remember. WAIT. Wait. 4 things you need to do while you're in the waiting room of life. And the W stands for write down the lessons I'm learning. Write down the lessons I'm learning, because writing is always a season to listen. Waiting is always a season to listen and to learn. And when you're listening and learning, you want to write down what you've learned. You know, God has some things that he wants to teach you during this time when you're waiting for an answer. But you'll forget the lessons that you have learned in the waiting times if you don't write them down. One of the things that I do every time I'm going through a time of difficulty or a time of trial is, God, help me to learn the lesson that you want to teach me. You know, I don't want to waste the pain. I want to learn that lesson. I don't want to have to learn that lesson again in future. And you want to make sure that that lesson that you have learned stays learned, because you know what will happen if you forget it? He has to teach it to you all over again, and that's unnecessary pain. Unnecessary pain. You know, some of you, God has been trying to teach you something, and you're not getting it, or you got it but you forgot. Yeah, there's no need to have to learn the same lesson over and over and over again. Why don't you write down the lessons that you've been learning this time, so that next time when you're going through a time that you're going through something else, it will be to learn something new, so that you'll be growing. You know, Moses led the children of Israel out of Egypt and across the wilderness to the promised land. And in Numbers chapter 33, it says, at the Lord's direction, Moses kept a written record of their progress. Notice it's God who is commanding Moses to do this. Are you keeping a written record of your progress, of the growth of your Christian life? Keep a journal. Keep a journal when you're waiting, and don't just write down what you do. Write down the lessons that you have learned. It's something that, you know, that I've done off and on over the years, and it's really a blessing. But I know that even for me, I need to get more disciplined about it, and I pray that for you as well. Deuteronomy 11, verse 2. It says, remember today the discipline you learned from the Lord your God. So as I said, you don't remember? You know, God has to take you there again, and that's painful. So when you're waiting, tell the Lord, teach me. I want to learn the lesson, and you write it down. You write down what you have learned. The A in wait, and this is a really important one, act on the basis of the promise. Act on the basis of the promise. That's what faith is. You know, taking action, starting to live on the basis of what God has promised is certain, that this thing is certain to come. You know, it's again like a pregnant woman, because she believes that there's a child coming, she starts to get ready. You find that she's cleaning the house and clearing it and rearranging the rooms because this is happening. She gets a cot, she brings and buys new things that are needed. She's acting on her belief. You know, she's expecting that baby, and so, you know, she starts to do something. Even though she hasn't yet seen that baby, the baby hasn't yet come. She's so sure it's coming. You know, as a Christian, I know my home is in heaven, so I don't worry so much about, you know, the what I have on earth, what I don't have on earth. My life is more than the number of my things and the food that I eat. But because I believe in God's promises, I live differently. I choose different things than the person who has no knowledge of God. And sometimes they even get surprised. You know, they're surprised. You're putting all that money into what? You know, all that time. You're making all that effort. What is all this? You've refused, you know, for some of you, you've refused to make that deal. You're refusing to, you won't have sex with me because of something that you can't see. No, it's not something. It is someone. It is God. Because of God, I'm living for the King, and I'm building His kingdom because I believe that He is real and that He rewards those who seek to please Him. Act on the basis of the promise. You step forward in faith. Look at Mark chapter 11:24. Jesus said, I tell you, whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you have received it and it will be yours. Believe that you have received it and it will be yours. Do you notice the change in the tenses that's there? Believe that you have received it. That's past tense. And then it will be yours. And that's the future tense. It's coming. It's coming, but you've got to believe it. In John, 1 John chapter 5, verse 14, should be on your screen. We are certain that God will hear our prayers when we ask for what pleases Him. And if we know that God listens when we pray, we are sure that our prayers have already been answered. So maybe it's not visible yet, but it's done. So start acting because the reality is coming. Now we know that if we're making requests that are based on selfish motives, we shouldn't really expect so much of God. But when we are responding in faith because we feel God is calling us in this way and so we're asking Him to step in and walk together with us, we start acting even before we see, even before things have come out. You're waiting on a job and you're trusting the Lord about it. You don't wait around idle. You get prepared. You start preparing for your working life. And so you're getting up early every day. You do something that is productive every day, and you're reading and studying a little bit more about what you feel God has called you towards as a career. You're hanging out with people in that field so that you can be learning from them. I remember when God called me to change my career. And serve His people in the church as a pastor. And that was, of course, it was many, many years ago. But there was a 3-year wait from the time it was clear that I was being called into this to when it became reality. But as soon as I could, I started to act, to do some courses in theology. I started to walk with my pastor in a different way. I was observing him in a different way. I wasn't waiting for the change, the job to be given to me to start getting ready. When we started this church, we used to meet in a kindergarten behind the village market. And when we made the decision to buy this land, that very week, something amazing happened. We were given 6 weeks' notice to leave where we were, to come out of there. And in that time, we needed to negotiate to purchase the land. We needed to make payments. We needed to do some major landscaping because this ground was so slopey. There were so many, stumps, tree stumps on this land. We needed to buy a large tent that could be a sanctuary. We needed to build classrooms for our Sunday school. And all of it was happening in the midst of the rains. This was April, and the rains were the highest. I've never seen such high rains up to now in this place. It was an amazing situation. And I remember one guy dragging me, to see other places, to see, other locations that maybe we need to go and find somewhere else to be in the interim. 6 weeks is just not enough. But we were clearly being called. We really felt that God was stirring us to move direct to our own property. The time was an amazing limitation. We didn't have enough money. Even looking and sourcing all the things that were needed. How was this all going to happen? Well, we acted. We acted, before everything came together because we felt that God was calling the tune. And so we needed to respond. And that thing was amazing because God fulfilled it completely. We were able to fully move. And this is what we are to do. We don't wait for everything to be in place. If you believe Him, it changes the way you act. You do things differently even before they have become different. Faith produces action. I want you to write this down. Waiting is not passivity. Waiting is not passivity. There is a difference between passively, waiting in fear or in apathy, and expectantly waiting in faith as you take action, where you're taking action. You get prepared and you act as though you're certain that God is coming through. Act on the basis of His promise. Don't be passive. Move forwards in faith. The I in wait is the third key that you need to be doing while you're waiting, and that is imitate the habits that grow strong faith. I need to be imitating the habits, particularly, of people of strong faith. Hebrews chapter 6, verse 12. We do not want you to become lazy, but to imitate those who through faith and patience inherit what has been promised. That's the kind of person that you are to be imitating when you're waiting. We don't want you to be lazy. We want you to be, looking around and doing something. Don't be passive, doing nothing. Imitate those who, through faith, have inherited what God has promised. Philippians 4:9. Keep putting into practice all you learned and received from me. Everything you heard from me and saw me doing. And that's called imitation. Imitation. When you're going through a period of waiting, you want to look around and see, are there some strong Christians that you can learn from? See what their habits are and pick them up and start doing those things. Imitate their faith. We all learn. The best learning that we have is through models. And that's why during Daring Faith, I really want you to be sharing your testimonies with one another in the CLGs. But also I want to hear some of those testimonies. I've heard some from people, but we want to hear more, and we'll be looking to get them out even after the campaign is finished. Because, we learn the best. We learn most when we hear how God has worked through the faith of others, and we encourage each other, by hearing, by seeing, by reading, as we understand the faith of other people. Now this is very important. When you're in the waiting room of life, don't put your life on hold. And you want to write that down? Don't put my life on hold. When I'm waiting for my breakthrough, I'm waiting for the answer to prayer, I'm waiting for that great man or woman of my dreams, don't put your life on hold. Waiting is not inactivity. It is not passivity. Waiting is a time to grow. It's a time to develop the habits and skills you're going to use into the future. Don't put your life on hold. Imitate the habits that grow strong faith. And what are those habits? I'll give you 5 habits. You might learn more, but let me give you 5. Number 1, keep on praying. While you're waiting, keep on praying. Matthew 7 verse 7. Keep on asking and you will receive what you ask for. Keep on seeking and you will find. Keep on knocking and the door will be opened to you. In some of our versions it just says, simply says ask, seek, knock. But the original Greek has it as a participle, which is the idea that something is continually repeated. It's something that you do and again and again. So it says keep on asking, keep on seeking, keep on knocking, and you will get your answer. Keep on praying. Number 2, keep on serving. Keep on serving. Romans 12:11, never be lazy, but work hard and serve the Lord enthusiastically. Why do I say that we need to keep on serving? Because that's always at the center of what God wants of me. And it's because also that if you want to be great, you must be a servant. That's what God has said. And as we're going through Daring Faith, one of the things that we are stepping out into as individuals and together is into the great things that God has in mind for us. That great future that God is calling us towards. But there is no greatness without serving. Even Jesus came as a servant. Number 3, keep on going to small group. Keep on going to the small group fellowship. We call them community life groups here. Hebrews 10 verse 25. Let us not give up the habit of meeting together. And please notice there that these meetings, this small group is a habit. Don't give up the habit of meeting together as some are doing. Instead, let us encourage one another all the more. Some of you have joined a community life group during this Daring Faith campaign. And now don't say at the end of this campaign, that was good. But now I'm going to just drop out of my group. Keep on going to small group. If you need to change groups because the timing isn't right or there's some things didn't fit, talk to us because we'll help you. We'll help you find something that will fit. But keep on going to small group. It's like a doctor. You don't like your doctor. You don't decide that, now I'll never see another doctor because I didn't like this one. You find another one. So if your group didn't quite fit what you needed, then please inform us. Get to another small group because you need to do this. This is part of your walk with God to help you grow. Number 4, keep on sowing. Keep on sowing. Ecclesiastes 11:6. Plant your seed in the morning and keep busy all afternoon, for you don't know if profit will come from one activity or another, or maybe both. Maybe at this time you've already sown a seed during Daring Faith. Maybe you're getting ready to. But daring faith isn't a one-moment thing. It's not a once-for-all time action that you do. It's something that we learn and we live and we move into the future as we're stepping into God's future for us. So we are told, keep on sowing your seed. You never know which one will grow. Perhaps all of it will grow. And then number 5, keep on believing. Keep on believing. 2 Timothy 3:14. But as for you, continue in the truth that you were taught and firmly believe. Firmly believe. Keep on believing. That's clear. And the big point I'm making during this is waiting is not passivity, guys. It is not passivity. Do the things that you ought to be doing, developing skills and habits now that will prepare you, when the baby arrives, when the answer comes through, that it doesn't catch you off guard. The delivery is a joy. Write down the lessons, act on the basis of the promise, imitate the habits of growing strong in faith, and then T, trust God instead of panicking. Trust God instead of panicking. There are a couple of facts that you can totally trust God on. 1, God is never in a hurry. And number 2, God is never late. God's timing is always perfect. But you'll ask, what about those times when it appears that God is late? Let me tell you, He's never late. Trust Him. Trust God. He is never late. For instance, in the Bible, we have this story in John chapter 11. Lazarus, one of Jesus' best friends, he got very sick. And so his sisters, Mary and Martha, they sent word to Jesus to tell him, teacher, come, because your friend is sick. He's really sick. And then Jesus doesn't come until, everyone actually thinks he's too late because, Lazarus is already dead and we've wrapped him up and we've put him in the tomb. You're too late. You've missed this most important thing of your best friend. You've missed the timing on your best friend. But Jesus wasn't late. Jesus wasn't late because Jesus already had in mind what he was going to do. His goal wasn't to heal Lazarus. He was going to bring Lazarus back from the dead. His goal was to do an astronomical and amazing, amazing miracle. Sometimes God lets a situation get so bad that only a miracle will do. Don't give up your faith. Hang on. Hang on. Do the things that I've taught you to do because you're getting ready for the miracle, for the intervention of God. Jesus walks up to that tomb and he tells them, roll away the stone. And then he says, Lazarus, come out. And he comes out. Amazing. And something that is interesting in that story, just before he's doing this, when he walks up to the tomb, he prays out loud. He says, Father, I thank you that you've already heard me, but I'm praying this out loud for the benefit of the people around me. Jesus knew what he was going to do ahead of time. God already knows what he's going to do in your life tomorrow, what he's going to do in the next decade, and all the way to the end of your life. And his plan for you is good, and you need to trust him. He's not early, he's not late, he's always on time. So I will trust God. I'll write down the lessons, I'll act on the promises, and step forward in faith. I'm going to imitate the habits. I'll keep on sowing, I'll keep on serving, I'll keep on believing, I'll keep on going to small group, and I'll keep on praying, and I'll trust God. I'll trust God. On the screen, we have Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. So let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. Never, ever give up. Especially never, ever give up on God. Because no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has imagined what God has prepared for those who love him. Never, ever give up on God. But something that's really encouraging, something that's really heartwarming? God will never, ever give up on you. Is that encouraging? God will never, ever give up on me. Just tell yourself that right now. Just tell him. Just tell yourself, God will never ever give up on me. Even when we are not faithful, he is. He is. Now let's look at Psalm 56 verse 3 as we recognize that. Even when I am afraid, I keep on trusting you. That's daring faith. That's daring faith. Even when I'm afraid, I will trust you. You know, listen, guys, some of us here, I know that you're really thinking, when you're thinking about daring faith, you're still thinking, you know, I'll do this thing, I'll wait for the fear to go away, and then I'll step out in daring faith. You know, I'll step out in my dream, I'll give out, I'll do my tithing, I'll start giving a very special gift when the fear is finished. I'm going to wait until the fear goes away. And then, let me tell you something. Your fear isn't going to go away. It isn't going to go away. The only way you get through that fear is that you must step forward into it. You must move against it. You must move through it. You're scared, but you know that it's God who's calling. It's God who's calling. And it's God who's stirring in your heart and stirring your mind to move forward. That fear will not go away until you actually move forward into that future that God has called you to. Yes, you must stand against the things that you're anxious about. You're scared, but you step forward into that. You step out in faith. And when you jump in faith into the air, thinking, oh my, I've done it, you'll find God's hands holding you. You will not fall. God will keep you safe. Let's pray. Let's bow our heads. Maybe you could pray this prayer. Dear God, I realize that in the waiting room that I've been in, maybe it's you that's waiting on me to demonstrate faith, to live in the way that you want me to live. And I've been afraid to trust you. Maybe I've been afraid to commit myself to you. I've been afraid to step out in faith. I realize that in some sense, I've put my life on hold because of fear, because I'm not sure, but no more. No more, Lord, because I realize that the fear isn't going to go away by just hoping it goes away. So I commit myself unreservedly to you. And even when I'm afraid, Lord, I trust you. And I'm going to go forward because I trust you. I'm going to keep on praying. I'm going to keep on serving. I'm going to keep on going to my small group. I'm going to keep on sowing. I'm going to keep on believing and walking together with you because my life is truly in your hands. Lord, as I wait, I'll be writing. I'll be acting on the basis of the promise that you're giving to me. I'll be imitating so that I might learn to walk with you better. And I will trust you. Trusting you instead of panicking. So Lord, take me forward into the future. I want to step out, and I'm going to step out.